Hello everyone and welcome to the first ever episode of Thriti, Standing Firm for Our Planet, a podcast from the Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Green Cell, featuring conversations between global climate scientists and members of Gen Z. We deem it our privilege to have Professor Detlev Helmig here with us. He is a renowned associate professor at the University of Colorado, Boulder. In addition, Professor Helmig is the esteemed chief editor of Elementa, Science of the Anthropocene, Atmospheric Sciences, a renowned publication that investigates the effects of human activity on the atmosphere and climate of our planet. Known as a leading expert on climate change, Professor Helmig's work explores the makeup of the atmosphere, revealing the links between human activity and air pollution, particularly greenhouse gas emissions. His significant research has influenced important policy changes in the fight against climate change. One of his discoveries is that chemicals associated with the production of oil and gas wrote the wind to areas to no oil and gas activity, such as Boulder. Professor Helmig transcends academia, serving as the Elementa's chief editor, ensuring vital research reaches a wider audience. He champions informed citizens as key players in tackling environmental challenges. Please join us in welcoming Professor Detlev Helmig, a scientific leader whose dedication to research and communication inspires us all. Over to Dr. Helmig.
Very rare I hear somebody say these many nice things about my career and my accomplishments. So I really appreciate that introduction.
Well, hello, and it's an honor to be interviewing you, Detlev. I am Shravan. We have spoken over the mail, yes.
Yes, nice to see you face to face.
It's good.
Good evening to India.
Well, good morning to you then. The first question to you, what's a typical day like for you as an atmospheric scientist? Do you have any quirky routines or rituals that keep you motivated?
So, good questions. I think one of the appealing aspects of this profession is there's almost no typical day because there's a lot of changes, a lot of different things that come in that we have to work on day by day. That there's certain categories of activities that we have to do at atmospheric scientists, and that's the core. But then the activities really center around those core themes or topics. In my life, there was a university scientist. A significant amount of time was dedicated towards working with students, with fellow scientists, with postdocs, working with the media, with the public. If you are at a university or an institute, you have most likely administrative duties. You interact with your colleagues. You help with governing the institute or the university. There's service you provide to the community, such as reviewing research manuscripts, serving on review panels. You have to pursue your own research that may involve laboratory work, it may involve field studies, it may involve modeling. With a scientist, you should pursue publishing your work. It's a very, very important aspect, and that can take a very significant part of your work and time. You have to apply for research funding in most positions that are open to atmospheric scientists. It's likely that you'll have to develop applications to raise funding to support your and the institute's work. It could be a very significant part of your work, you need to continue learning. So you need to follow the science literature by reading journal articles, by attending conferences, going to seminars, having productive discussions with your colleagues. So I could probably keep going, but you can see there's lots of tasks and lots of responsibilities, and how much you do of one versus the other changes every day, every week. So I wouldn't say there's really a routine. It's highly flexible, it's highly variable. Every day is different. Do you have any quirky routines or rituals that keep me motivated? I wouldn't say routines or rituals. I think it's the unknown, the surprises, the new discoveries for sure. And what has been very satisfying for me over the past years is having experienced how much the work we've been doing has been recognized and appreciated by the public, environmental groups, the media, physicians, policymakers. I've really been very satisfied seeing how the hard work we're doing and the meticulous work we're doing, how it has had its impact and how the community has benefited from the work, the research, the science that we've been doing.
Well, I hope you keep doing that good work and keep your motivation on. So, on to my next question. Your research delves into understanding air quality and atmospheric chemistry. How do you think your work contributes to the Gen Z mission for a greener, more sustainable planet?
All right. Good question again. So what we do is we characterize air emissions, we characterize air pollution, we characterize how pollutants in the air interact, how they're related to each other. We help defining emission sources, and we communicate with local governments at different levels. In my case, that includes regional governments, state governments, through our peer-reviewed publications. Our work also is shared with the national and the global community, including regulatory agencies that most certainly pay attention to it. And I'm very certain that in findings, interpretations, conclusions from this work have stimulated, fostered discussion and legislation in drafting and implementing regulations that target regulating air emissions. You, for instance, have just seen in the United States that the Biden administration is tightening emission standards for heavy-duty trucks. Where did this come from? This comes from work that we and others have been doing that have demonstrated, the very significant pollution levels that arise from the operation of heavy machinery, and that includes heavy-duty trucks that don't have emission controls that are as sufficient as what we use to see these days in passenger cars. So I think this legislation will result in low emission rates for trucks and promoting electric trucks and conversion of fossil-fueled mobile sources to electrifying the transportation sector, which certainly does serve us and the community and all people on this planet towards moving to a cleaner environment with lower emissions of air pollution, of polluting gases that make air dirty and unhealthy and drive climate change.
That's really inspiring for other people to do. If also, we have done a little bit of research in your field work. What's the most memorable or challenging experience you have had while collecting data in the wild?
As a field researcher, memorable experiences most times are not anticipated. When you plan, organize a field campaign, field measurements, you think about your instruments, your data, and you're so focused on how to conduct the science. And that's all good, and most times we are reasonably successful with conducting the experience. The memories often, come from experiences that are, kind of on the periphery of the core science. So if you ask me right now, what do I remember what was so amazing, spectacular? I remember doing a field campaign in Greenland where the first night I was sleeping out in tents on the ice shield, and it dropped to minus 54 degrees centigrade. And that was just unimaginable to me that one could sleep in a tent. Well, I wasn't much sleeping, but I spent the night in a tent at minus 54 degrees centigrade. Never imagined I would encounter that. I remember campaigning in Alaska, ways both in Alaska at a research camp where we doing vertical profiling with a balloon, and a group of, I think, early college students visited the station, and I gave them more than an hour tour of the balloon experiment. It was such an amazing experience to have these young, motivated, interested students travel this far out into the Arctic to show interest in the work we're doing. Remember another incident, we did an experiment at the South Pole, in Antarctica, also to the balloon study, where balloon broke, it ruptured, the hull of the balloon ruptured from the cold temperature, and it just wouldn't stretch as the balloon was getting warmer. And we were at the South Pole, and there was no supply of materials to repair the balloon. And after having talked to people and brainstorm, we found a fellow who happened to do quilting. He was a quilter. He was making quilted blankets as a hobby at the South Pole. And he had a sewing machine there, and he pulled that out, and we found an old jacket, and we cut some fabric out from that old jacket, and we used that to patch the balloon. And he used the sewing machines with that, and I have some photographs that I just so fresh in my memory, even though it's more than 20 years ago. And the day after, the balloon was up again. So, the memorable experiences often come from interactions with people, with colleagues, with group members, with students, observing, environmental features, nature in places that otherwise you probably would have never ventured into. It's very diverse. It's not predictable. If you sign up for this line of research, I promise you there will be many experiences. that you would never have imagined?
Well, the cold won't allow me. I don't think so. It will allow me to sign up for this. So, on to my next question. In this world of academia, disputes and controversies are unavoidable. How do you handle disagreements and or criticism about your research findings in the age of online trolls and cancel culture?
That's a very thoughtful question. Thank you. Yeah, it's a very good point. We don't get trained to do this. I think you learn through lessons. You learn through experience. I think it helps if you can portray, that to your partners, the public, the media, that you are well informed, that what you are communicating is based on solid and good knowledge. Certainly it's important in any interaction to listen well and to acknowledge what the other side wants to share with you. Those are skills that do not just apply to science. Those are skills that apply to many fields of our lives, many areas of our lives. How do you have a productive, good, fruitful relationship, in your family, with your friends, with your partner, with your students, with your advisors. It's a very good point, and it's a skill that's extremely valuable. And I think realizing that and developing that skill will be a really important skill to have to guide you through your career and help you to progress in your career. I really appreciate this coming from you and the program you represent here, and my strong encouragement to anybody, especially young career people, would be to actively pursue these interaction management skills. I would encourage, the schools to offer classes, develop classes in, conflict resolution, and how do you have constructive, respectful discussions, how to avoid disputes, lots of things along those lines. We're not born with those skills, and often our parents don't necessarily pass those on to us. So, my encouragement to you and anybody else listen to this is to thoroughly think about it and develop a strategy and seek help and programs that can help you develop those skills and experiences.
Well, thank you very much for that input. Yes, so you have been advocating for better policies to combat air pollution. What advice do you have for Gen Z activists who want to make a difference in environmental issues?
Be strong, be good, be vocal. Don't overact, don't overreach, be realistic, and be credible. There's a wide range of activists out there, from moderate to extremist. I think the voices of the well-informed reasoned, educated, well-educated, if you call them activists, will probably be most respected and most impactful. Reach out, communicate, gather crowds behind you, be outspoken, but base your arguments on knowledge and understanding. And for that, never stop learning and acquiring the knowledge and understanding of how the environment works and how climate change is caused and driven by different contributions and factors that all mingle together in impacting, how the atmosphere works and our ability to foresee how the climate will move in the future.
Well, so your balancing work and personal life can be tough. How do you unwind and recharge outside the lab? Any Gen Z approved hobbies or guilty pleasures you indulge in?
Yeah, I think, good question. I think physical health and balancing your personal life and your studies and your research, your science, and with other activities is, for me, is important. And I think most people probably feel similar. That balancing has changed throughout my career. At times it was focused on physical activities, outdoors activities. Then, I started a relationship, got married, had a family. Then my children were a major focus. The family was a major focus, and that provided me a lot of happiness. Now my children are off to college, and I have more time for myself again. So I find other activities. But for me, would say a healthy balance between work and study and recreation has always been very important, and I felt that's always been fueling my batteries, so I have the energy to do the science work. And I think that's important for a successful career that builds on years and years and years of steady work and learning that will never end.
So, your career journey is very inspiring. What advice would you give to aspiring Gen Z scientists who dream of making breakthroughs in atmospheric science like you?
Pursuing a career in atmospheric science is challenging. It's not a straight trajectory. It's not easy. You could say it's unfortunate, but also the challenge, I think, brings the best out of us. So be prepared for that. If you want to be a bus driver, you may, get the license to become a bus driver, and probably you'll get a job. And if you're just a decent, good bus driver, you'll probably be a bus driver for the rest of your life, from maybe one job to another job, but you'll be a bus driver and somebody will pay you. And, you have a steady trajectory and a steady job. In atmospheric science, that's rarely like this. We don't know clearly, most of us don't know clearly, what our job and employment options will be in a year, and 3 years, and 5 years, and 10 years. With a few exemptions, there may be, so there's a lot of uncertainty how our career will evolve. A long time ago, a colleague of mine said, you cannot stop a good scientist. And I think that's right. Many years later, from my experience, I think that's right. I think good scientists gets recognized. They will have employment options. They have options for advancing their career, for promotions, for gaining positions that will give them stature and visibility, and where they can have impact. So no matter how rough the waters may be around you, and many times, and a lot of that is not in our hands. If you focus on being a good scientist, I think eventually things will fall into place, and you'll be able to pursue a successful career and satisfying employment. So put your energy into being a good scientist. Now you may ask, how I'm a good scientist. I'd say never stop learning, never stop listening. Follow the science, follow the literature, read it carefully, study the literature, think hard, interact with your colleagues, ask questions, think carefully about the answers, do your own science and research, become a contributor, become a communicator, share what you know with your friends, your colleagues, at the school, at conferences, the world, and write papers. There's lots of things that contribute for in the pursuit of a successful scientist career.
That was very inspiring. Thank you very much. Also, to my final question, your journey to turn your home into a net zero abode is very inspiring. Can you share some of the coolest or most innovative eco-friendly features you have incorporated in your house, and how they have made a difference in reducing your carbon footprint?
Well, thank you. I certainly appreciate that question. Very few people paid attention to that aspect of my life. As a climate and atmospheric scientist, so it's not just a job or profession, it's a passion. That's, I think, a general rule, following your passion in life is probably one of the best things and most promising things to do for a happy life and a successful career. And one of my passions is, studying the atmosphere and making contribution for us to become a sustainable society, and the recognition that my own actions may be counterproductive that's really dissatisfying. It makes me sad. Anytime there burn fossil fuels for many things we all are doing, it saddens me. I don't want to do this. And also, I'm raising 2 children, and I want to give them an example, my neighbors and others who know me or follow us as an example, that in many areas of our lives, we can pursue choices that have a much lower impact on the environment than what common norms may be. It starts with, driving a car versus riding your bicycle. Everybody knows how different that is in terms of the emissions and the carbon that's burned and the fossil fuel, and not just the burning of the fossil fuel, the gasoline most cars these days still use, but even what goes into producing that gasoline, all the way from the impact of oil and gas drilling, of the pipelines, of the tankers that need to cross the oceans, of the gas stations, the venting, the emissions, the accidents, the spills, building that car, all the energy that goes into the building that car. Your impact on the environment by bicycling is so much lower compared to utilizing a car, especially when the car is powered with an internal combustion engine. Similar, that's a this is an example for a very similar, simple solution that all of us understand, where you have a choice of a very low to little impact of transportation versus a choice that has a very high impact on the environment and contributing to climate change. Our houses are similar. There's lots of things in our homes that are traditionally not designed with the intention to conserve energy and be sustainable. As a critically thinking scientist, I think we have more awareness and understanding. And I factored that in when I redesigned my home. I would say, if you go down the list from things to start, the first part really is habits. It's not so much, what's in your house and what you do to it and how much money is put into it. It's habits. With that, I mean, how much energy do you really need to use to feel comfortable and be happy? Conserving energy, not turning lights on unless the space is occupied. Closing windows to avoid the loss of heat, or closing windows in the summer to avoid warm air from the outside to make it into the home. It shows not to use a clothes dryer, but a clothesline, which in the United States is very unusual because most people use clothes dryer instead of clothesline. I drop the temperature in the winter at night because in the night we don't need to sleep in a very warm, cozy home. So, those personal habits can contribute significantly to reducing the amount of energy and amount of fossil fuel that's needed to maintain a comfortable environment in your house. That's an easy start that costs almost no money. To move from there, shading of windows, simple blinds, shading to keep the sun out in the summer when it's too hot, or let the sun in the winter when you want the heat in the house, and operate those blinds manually or by motors. Very simple, very little expense. Next, on the list is I changed windows all around the house to make them more energy efficient, and they're tuned towards the side of the house so that windows on the north side are tuned towards maximum insulation, and windows on the south side, they are tuned for maximum heat gain in the winter, but good reflection of sun in the summer as the angle of the sun changes throughout the season. I doubled to tripled the insulation of the walls of the house, and the very important is the roof in the house. It's about 2 to 3 times the building code. I changed the heating system in the house where I can heat each room individually rather than heating the whole house altogether, which is a common way this is done in the United States, change the heating system to a radiant floor heating system, which when the heat comes through the floor, it gives you a higher level of comfort. So you can reduce the overall temperature setting in the house in the winters, because when the heat comes from underneath and goes, your feet get warm because the floors are warm. It gives you the perception of a warmer environment than heat that comes from above. So you can have, the same comfort feeling with 2, 3, 4 degrees lower room temperature. I installed kill switches on many electronic outlets, so that when you have computers and TV and on and on and on, you can turn the power off completely, because many of those devices continue using power even in standby mode. And then I installed a whole array of solar systems, solar systems to heat water for the domestic water use. So this is what you use: the kitchen sink and the shower, so that's heated with a hot water solar system. And there's a hot solar system that heats water to then provide the space heating for this radiant floor heating. And then I installed photovoltaic systems that provide electricity. And we're fortunate here because we have a relatively sunny climate here in Colorado. So the house actually produces more electricity than it consumes throughout the year. So I have actually a surplus, an excess of electricity. And I recently purchased an electric car. It's the first electric car we've ever had, and that's being charged in the garage with the excess electricity. So been living in this house now for 13 years, and it's been generating more energy than it's been consuming. So for all the heating, the hot water, the space heating, the electricity, it supplied all that energy with their own with the installations and solar harvesting. So we're very happy, and I've raised my children in an environment that's just been fueled by the sun. And we're more happy because now I'm expanding that solar lifestyle, not just to my living, but also to my transportation, since my car now is also fueled, charged with electricity that's generated by the house. So it's well possible, the bottom line. It requires innovative thinking. In my case, I did all of this myself, pretty much. I'm fortunate because I have the engineering and technical understanding to do this, and I know how to work with my hands into construction. And, I factored in my own learning, and it's been a journey that's not provided me just a comfortable house, but also a lot of learning and knowledge and understanding, which I'm happy to share with others. So I really appreciate your question.
Well, that was certainly praiseworthy, and now I know why Dr. Prafulla was all praises about it. Thank you very much for your words of wisdom, and it's been an honor hosting you.
Well, it was a pleasure being on this call or recording, and I hope I'll be able to help you with your questions. And if there's anything you're interested in following up, please feel free to reach out again.
Sure, I'll do that. Thank you very much.